Welcome, everybody. It's Ted Prodromo, and this is Social Selling TV. And today's guest is Bob Serling. And I've been following Bob for years online, and I just love his work. He's just one of those really great guys to follow and invest in. And we were introduced last year, it was. So Perry Marshall introduced us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And we've been kind of keeping in touch, and Bob has some great stuff. And he talked about recently about, if you're over 45, worried about your career. And I'm thinking, boy, I've been just upended 3 times in my career since I've been in my early 40s. And so, Bob, I want to welcome you to the call because you're going to share some great information about for all of us that are looking for that second act in our career. Welcome, Bob.
Right. Well, thanks a lot. And an extended thanks to Perry for introducing us. It was very nice of him to do that.
And I wore this shirt in honor of you today. Let me show you. This is the company that laid me off a couple of years ago.
Very good.
We increased their revenues from 25 million to 125 million in 3 years during the worst economy from 2009 to 2013.
And to thank you, they laid you off.
The whole marketing department.
Unbelievable. And it's happening all the time.
So why is this happening to everybody, especially people over 45?
Yeah, and let me, we'll talk about that in just a second, but just to follow on what you said, down here in the San Diego area where I am, it is the center of biotech development for the country. And biotech is medicine and cancer research and all of that. And even there, they lay people off like crazy. And they don't have enough people to fill the jobs, yet they're still laying people off. Why? Well, it gets down to one thing, and it's always money. And so it was really interesting because my wife and I took a short trip about 3 weeks ago, and we use a car service, and the driver was about to graduate with a master's degree in engineering. And he said, yeah, I'm going to work for, and he named a Fortune 500 computer chip maker that's down here. And there's 3 or 4 of them, so I won't say which one it is and disparage them. I said, that's great. I hear they're really hiring. He said, oh, yeah, they are, because they're going to lay off 80% of their senior staff. I said, what do you mean? Why would they do that? So, well, it's easy. Every time people graduate, every year at graduation, they lay off their senior people and they bring in all these junior people to replace them. They keep 20% of their senior people so they have enough to manage the new people. But a senior engineer on average makes $200,000 a year, and these entry-level people with master's degrees make $60,000. And so that's one of the reasons, but it's even worse than that. And what's really happening is that, and most people aren't aware of it. In fact, I just found out about it about 6 months ago. But 2 professors, one from Harvard and one from Princeton, did a study. And the guy from Princeton, they're both professors of economics. The one from Princeton was on the economic advisory panel for President Obama. So if anything, you would think they'd want to look at these job statistics and make things look good. What they did was they examined all job creation from 2005 through 2015. So that's 11 years. Sounds like 10, but it's actually 11. And they used the U.S. Department Bureau of Labor Statistics on all jobs that were created. So it's not like they used some outside outside stats. It was all government stats. What they discovered was that there was almost no net job creation for conventional 9-to-5 jobs. 94% of all net job growth was in part-time work, freelance work, and what's called the gig economy, which means driving for Uber or delivering pizza or whatever. Only 4% of net job growth was in conventional 9-to-5 jobs. And so what that means is that there aren't very many good jobs available. And that's not going to change. That's an 11-year period. That's not a fad. That's not a minor dip. That is the new reality, and that's the new economy. And so that's one major reason why we have this problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I told my kids. You know, they just graduated from college. They're working their first jobs and keep learning because, you know,
Yeah.
my son works at Cisco. They just announced 1,100 people are going to get laid off.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at Cisco's profits, the profits are up, yet they're laying people off.
Right.
Look at ESPN.
Right.
ESPN just laid off, what was it, 120 of their on-camera people? And then 6 months prior to that, they laid off that many behind the camera people. Well, ESPN is profitable, and they're owned by Disney, which is super profitable, but it goes on all the time.
Right. Yeah. So, well, you talk about the younger people, the older people. So what's the solution to this? I mean,
Well, you know, before we get to the solution, when you look at the disparity between younger and older, it gets even worse. Because if you're over 45, labor statistics show that it takes 3 times as long to get rehired when you lose a job or when you quit than it does for young people. And again, why? Well, it's pretty obvious. Young people will work for less money. And don't forget, it takes 3 times longer, but that's for mainly for part-time or freelance type of work. So there's nothing great there. In fact, another study that came out of, it's called the Sloan Center on Aging and Work in Boston College. They call people 45 and older the new unemployables because there's so little work and it's so difficult to get that work.
right. Yeah. I was in the high tech world, and after the .com crash, I was about 42.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted a network manager for 42 years old making a lot of money.
Right. Yeah. And it's not a pretty picture, and it's really not going to get better. We are, I mean, the reality of the new economy, and look at all of the retail stores that are closing because business is shifting to online. And a lot of that is done using service people who don't live in the U.S. and they're very inexpensive labor. And now they've got robots pulling and filling all the orders. And that's how Amazon does it. You know, Amazon's shipping is really amazing. Their whole warehouse doesn't even have lights because the robots don't need light. So they don't have utility bills. Now they have lights. They turn them on occasionally when the managers come in and check certain things. But in the areas where the robots pull the goods off the shelf and stack them to get them, excuse me, ready for shipping, they don't even have lights. They don't even have utility costs there.
Yeah, last summer we were in Milwaukee for a wedding, and we toured the Miller Brewing plant. We saw like 6 people working there, and the forklifts were all driving around. There's 500,000 cases of beer a day they put into this warehouse and ship.
Yeah, yeah. And the forklifts are self-driving. They're robotic. It's amazing.
Yep. So what's the solution for us?
Well, you know, the solution, as counterintuitive as it is to start your own business. Because look, if you're going to be a freelancer or a gig, work in the gig economy or work part-time, do it for yourself and keep all the money, you know, instead of doing it for somebody else.
So isn't it really hard to start a business if you never have done that before and you're in your 40s?
Well, you would think it would be, but it really isn't when you understand that with every problem, there's always opportunity. So let's call this new economy the problem, the fact that so many people have been laid off. But there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there because when they lay off a lot of people and they hire younger, unskilled, untrained people, that means there's a shortage of knowledge, there's a shortage of skills, there's a shortage of expertise, and there's a shortage of ideas. So what I'm talking about doing is creating what I call a second act business. And that's a business that takes those weaknesses that I just mentioned of the new economy and it turns them into strengths. And it's actually not that difficult to do. And I've created actually a little 3-step formula that lets anybody do it.
Cool. Tell us about this 3-step formula.
Okay, so there's 3 very simple steps, and let me just give them to you first, and then we can dig into each one in more detail. And I actually call them success points for creating a second act business. And what I mean by a second act business is for a person 45 or older, because and younger people could use it, but the distinction is that when you're 45 or older, you have a set of skills, a set of knowledge, even knowledge that you've gained from hobbies or topics that you're passionate about, and things. And we'll go into that in more detail in a minute. But so that's why it's second act, because you bring skills and knowledge to it that younger workers don't have. So the first success point is that the business has to be easy to start and operate with no special skills. And I'm kind of going to read these a little because I forget the finer points. So the second success point is that you have to be able to successfully start the business for $500 or less. And the third success point is, and this is the most important of the 3, is that the majority of the business should leverage assets that someone else has already created. So you don't have to invest a lot of money in creating those assets yourself, because that's the biggest expense of any business.
So kind of like what I did when I got laid off, I just happened to be really active with LinkedIn and social media. So I just started my own business. It didn't cost me anything.
Exactly. And that's one perfect example of how it can be done.
Okay. Yeah. And I've been getting a lot of my leverage by working with other LinkedIn experts, and we share our knowledge.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand that if you share knowledge and you share leads and you share sales with people who you would think are your competitors, everybody does better.
Yeah.
And so let me give you an example. My hobby is nature photography. Well, and I buy a lot of courses and training materials, and I go to workshops and stuff. I'm not going to buy courses from just one expert. I'm going to buy from multiple experts, because everybody has their own unique take or their own unique way. In fact, I took a course just on how to properly focus a camera. And I've been doing this for 6-7 years. I know how to focus a camera. This guy had one little point that I've never heard anywhere else, and I've been using it, and it's really been helping amazingly. But the point is, you're going to buy from a lot of different people. And we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but because of that, it makes great sense to collaborate with your competitors.
Yeah. Like Bryn Tillman, who's a LinkedIn expert, she pulled together 200 tips from LinkedIn from 200 LinkedIn experts.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Put it in ebook. She put it out there, and it's like going viral like crazy.
Wow, good for her. That's a great way to do things.
Yeah. So instead of competing against each other, we're all just working together, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah. So other than your photography, I just saw an iPhone photography course online.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of them actually, and that's one of the one of the new economy things I talk about for creating businesses around. So for photographers, and so people will see my photography, and I've gotten pretty good. I'm not National Geographic good, but I'm decent. And people say, well, you should sell your photography. And I go, yeah, sure. That would mean going to flea markets on the weekend and making about $50 a weekend, because people don't buy photography. But what they do buy is instruction. And there are a lot of instruction courses, but if you think about it, people also don't buy cameras much anymore. Why? Because their phone is a camera.
Yeah.
So if you understand basic photography, that you can take the basics of photography and apply those to phone cameras. And let's talk specifically iPhone, because most people shoot with iPhone, and there's differences between shooting with an iPhone.
There's
Uh-oh.
Lila.
See, now they doesn't like that topic. So, you could create an entire course. You could create tours, taking people like, here's a tour. Let's shoot portraits this week. Let's shoot nature scenes. Let's shoot architecture. You could take people into selfies. You could have a whole course on how to shoot better selfies or better food pictures that people like to post to Instagram. And that's an example of leveraging the new economy. You don't have to be an art or design school anymore to teach a good course on iPhone photography. You simply have to know a little more than the next person on how to do it.
So Thomas has a question.
Okay.
Does the same apply to more senior individuals, particularly a highly professional area?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can talk about that in a minute. So in fact, let's go into the 3 steps.
Okay.
And that'll incorporate a lot of what Thomas is asking about. So the first step is that starting the business has to be easy to do with no special skills required. Well, by the time you are 45 or older, as we said, you've got skills. You've got business skills and you've got hobby skills. So my hobby skills, I have photography skills. I have a really broad range of knowledge in nutrition because I've studied nutrition. And I've actually had the opportunity to work with some great nutrition experts, people, medical doctors who have, courses that they're selling on PBS and stuff. So I've learned stuff, and I had a high cholesterol rating, and so I recently devised my own little diet plan based on solid nutrition, and I dropped 18 pounds, and I'm at the absolute low end of the range of cholesterol on everything. So I could create a little diet plan on that if I wanted. Now, I don't want to, but the point is that we all have skills we've gained through jobs and through our interests. So the issue isn't having the skills, it's how do you leverage them.
Mm-hmm.
And you leverage them by understanding what we talked about, which is the weaknesses of the new economy, is that there's a lack of expertise, a lack of new ideas, and a lack of knowledge greater than just entry level. So 3 ways you can do this, and this answers, there's actually dozens of ways, but let's talk about 3 simple ways, and this should address Thomas's questions. One is consulting, which is what both you and I started with.
Mm-hmm.
Second is training, which I talked about. You could write a training manual on iPhone. And the third is information products. And all you have to do is bring your unique way of approaching a topic to that topic, which is what you did with LinkedIn.
Right.
You weren't a LinkedIn expert to start with. You were a guy who was really good at LinkedIn, and you had your own way of doing it. And that is an expert. But what I mean is you weren't an established expert.
Right.
You hadn't published your book. You hadn't done all these things. You just had expertise and your own approach to it, your own ideas that you brought to the market. Yep. And you could have done that through consulting, which you did, or training, which you do, or creating information products. Those are all 3 really good areas. So we talked about it. So that's for professionals. Now, if you're an accountant, if you know a way to use Excel or other spreadsheets or other tools, you
right.
can consult, create training or information products on that. Let's say your interest is yoga and you're a cyclist and you've determined a way to use, you've created a way to use yoga to help people who are really interested in cycling feel better and not have as many aches and pains, especially maybe people 45 or older, just like us. You could create a whole course on that. Yoga for cyclists in their older years, and because, riding a bicycle, you get stiff when you're done. So there's many, many ways you could do that.
Yeah. It's really just something you love or something you really know. There's hundreds of LinkedIn experts out there, but I have my own special way I do it, and people resonate with you.
Right. So let's now talk about the second point, which is that in order to qualify to be a good second act business, you have to be able to start it for $500 or less. And as you said, it really didn't take you, it probably didn't cost anything because you probably just approached people you knew. Now, eventually you have to put up a website, but with WordPress, anybody can put up a website for about $100 these days.
Yeah.
And it's really easy. So let me give you one of my favorite examples of a guy who's doing this. And he's the leader of an Irish music band, right? So how does an Irish music band start a second act business? Because he doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to be on the road his entire life. He doesn't want to be in bars late at night his entire life. So what he did, and this is just brilliant, and I'll show you how anyone can do this. What he did is he decided, now he grew up in Scotland, and every year his band tours Ireland and Scotland, and they're actually more well known there than they are here, and they go there for a few weeks. So he got this idea, well, what if we took a bunch of our fans with us? But we have to have stuff for them to do during the day.
Yeah.
So what he did was he connected with a tour company that does tours of Europe. And he said, I want to do this. I want to take people along to our gigs at night, but I need things and good things, quality things for them to do during the day. Can you put together a tour? And can you set up the whole tour and run it? They said, sure, we'd love to. So that's exactly what they did. The tour company set something up. They book all the hotels. They book all the guides. They go to all the places. He told them certain things that he did growing up as a boy in Scotland and Ireland that were must-haves to include, and they included those. So now they do these 12-day tours, and he doesn't do anything but let his email list of fans know about it, and they fill it every year. Mm-hmm. In fact, my wife and I are going on it this year.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's very cool. So he gets a cut of that every year. Now, say, well, I don't have a band. You don't have to have a band. You could expand this out. Anybody who has a passion, you might know of a band you like, of a sports team you like. You may be interested in gourmet restaurants or fine wineries. You could work with a tour company to set up tours that follow a sports team. Another one with a ticket broker to get the tickets. You get to go do all these things, which you enjoy because it's and all you do is let people know about it. You're really just the middleman brokering that. You could do it for, like I said, for sports teams, for any band and any type of music, for any interest you have. It could be for gourmet restaurants. It could be wineries. Coming back to yoga. People love yoga. Well, what if you went to India, took people to India and went to visit teachers who are experts in all the various styles of yoga? You can do it for any topic you can think about. And it doesn't cost you any money because the tour company's doing the whole thing. All you really have to do is build a list and let your list know about it. And that you can easily do, like I said, with a simple web page,
Mm-hmm.
and even letting it's interesting if you told a certain band that you wanted to do this and follow them, they would tell their fans about it because they
Right.
want to offer it to their fans. So, most of those assets you can get for free. So, and then the third step then is that, and we'll tie it together because we've talked a lot about it, is that the majority of the business should leverage assets that someone else has already paid to create. Well, that's what we're doing right here. Um, the Irish music tours are a perfect example, but let's fall back for a second and talk more about the new economy. Where are the big successes in the new economy? They're companies that leverage other people's existing assets. Airbnb, Uber, Groupon, Living Social. They don't own any of those assets. There's people have a need for those services,
Mm-hmm.
and they just act as a middleman and broker them. Well, that's what you're going to do with a second act business, but you're going to be a mini Airbnb or a mini Groupon or whatever, from the sense, and I don't mean specifically those businesses, but from the sense that you use other people's assets. So coming back, let's talk about you for a second. The asset you leveraged was LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn already exists. There's a lot of people using it. And LinkedIn is very confusing. And LinkedIn changes their rules, what, every 18 minutes, is it? Or are they down to 16 minutes now?
About 16 seconds.
Yeah. And so that's a great opportunity. But that asset on one side already exists, LinkedIn. And the asset on the other side is frustrated users. You're in the middle and you're just smoothing the experience for those users and really helping them get what they want. So
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have to create assets. Your asset, I mean, those assets existed. You just brought your special skill and your way of approaching it to it. And um, so let me give you another example that I love because this one really leverages assets. Now, the Irish music tour certainly leveraged assets. That was a good one.
Yeah.
There's a woman I read about, and she loves to go to day spas at high-end resorts and get massages and, I know, cucumber face rubs or whatever they do. But most high-end resorts charge between $500 to $1,000 per night for a room. So she'd only been maybe once or twice in her life, and I don't know how she even did it. So she got this idea that during the week, especially in mornings like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, these spas are empty. So she approached these high-end resorts. I mean, like Four Seasons and all those type quality resorts, and said, what if I sold time to people to use by the hour in your day spas, but only on the hours that you have available? And you tell me what you have available and I'll sell it. And I'll never interfere with your busy hours. She immediately got 5 high-end resorts to agree to do it. She started by just telling her friends, and she started filling the time just telling her friends. They told other people, and then she put up a website. Within a year, she was doing like $400,000 a year doing this, and I'm sure she now got to go to the resorts for free because she was bringing them all the business. But the point is, those assets, literally hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets,
Mm-hmm.
equipment, these resorts that cost millions to build, their staff, their scheduling, all of that is all loaned to her by those resorts. She doesn't have a penny invested in it. If her business was to go belly up tomorrow, which it won't, it's growing. Every month it grows. But if it were, she doesn't lose anything. She didn't invest a penny in assets. Okay, so let me give you one more example that'll bring it back to people, and this will be another idea for Thomas. Brokering services. Now, I teach a course in brokering services because it is one of the best way for people 45 and over to make a lot of money with no assets whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you an example of what one of my students did. So he has a company that provides SEO services. And there's always a demand for SEO services. A friend of his said, hey, I'm going to have a new website built. I'm really excited. And I found this company, and they're going to do a great job, but it's going to cost me $6,000. And he said, well, let me do it. I'll do it for a fraction of that. In fact, I'll do it for $2,000. Now, he doesn't offer website building services or web development. That's not, he focuses strictly on SEO.
Right.
What he did, there are 5 different freelance services that I recommend. He went out to one of my recommended services. He found a freelancer who'd build the site for $500. It was a pretty simple site.
Yeah.
But so the freelancer built the site, they delivered it, the job was done, he charged his friend $2,000. His entire involvement in it was finding the freelancer, getting his friend to send the specs to the freelancer, and checking in to make sure that the freelancer delivered on time. Had a total of 2 hours invested in it. He made, so like 2,000 less 500, it's 1,500. He made $750 an hour for those 2 hours.
Wow.
I then showed him how he could have actually doubled that by charging more. And then I gave him a way to take that all you need is one little success, and you can create it for a friend. You can create it for free if you want. And you take that success and as your case study, and you can sell it to hundreds or thousands of other businesses. And that's what he does now. In fact, I think he spends more of his time brokering services than he does SEO. He still has the SEO development company, but that's very competitive SEO.
Yeah.
And he can always find people who need services, and he just brokers them. And you can do that in any industry, whether you have experience in it or not.
So it's kind of like hotels.com. They take all this excess inventory for the hotels, sell it, and they get a commission.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny. Priceline.com lets you bid on hotels, but they don't tell you what it is.
Right.
So they're using someone else's assets. Another company came along and said, we'll tell you what hotels Priceline is most likely to use.
Yeah.
And this is really, so they took Priceline's model, they reverse engineered it, they figured out how they found the hotels, said, come to us instead. We'll tell you the hotels that have the great deals, go negotiate them yourself, and don't pay Priceline. So everybody's using somebody else's assets. It's really interesting. And so, as I said, the problem with the new economy is that it's knocked jobs for a loop.
Yeah.
But the opportunity with a new economy is you can create your own business to offer services that those jobs used to, that people aren't offering anymore, that companies aren't offering.
I did this with a client years ago. I used to do websites, and it was a little winery, and the guy had his own little vineyard, and he'd have to hire people to pick the grapes every year.
Yeah.
And then they'd bring it down and make. I said, he started sending emails out to his list, and he said, hey, you want to come pick grapes? And these people go, and they would pick all the grapes, and then they'd come and to make the wine. He'd teach them how to make wine.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'd charge them.
Yeah. And I've read about farms that have done the same thing. Bring your kids, let them get close to nature.
Yeah.
They can help harvest, and then we'll show you how we chop it up and package it. And they're getting people to pay to do their work.
Yeah. So I said, Paul, why don't you go, let's see, some bed and breakfast, go to them and say, hey, we're going to have this crowd here. And then restaurants in Napa Valley. So he created this whole experience. He was charging $5,000 for 3 days.
Absolutely.
And people were paying it. There's waiting lists.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. There's, you know, there's working ranches, and you get to ride horses. That's kind of, you know, they do have activities, but you're cleaning out barns too, you know. Yeah, this is how you have to care for the animals. And
right.
People dig in, you know, and if they're smart, they create competitions. Who can scoop more in 30 minutes? Well, you get a mimosa, you know, or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how you can leverage all of that. And look at, you know, if you want to look at it on a bigger scale, but it started in a garage or a kitchen table, is Angie's List. Angie's List just connected people with handyman services.
Right.
What's the problem with a handyman? You don't know who's good, who isn't.
Yeah. So
you need a plumber, see who's been verified. And, you know, that's what so many of these, Yelp, all Yelp does is let people rate stuff.
Right.
It's a rating service, and they make a tremendous amount of money. And you could do that. You could create your own Yelp for whatever industry you love. Yeah. So again, if it's yoga, you could start a local Yelp for the yoga studios in your area. If it's golf, you could start a Yelp for the various golf instructors. I want to take a golf lesson. How do I know who's good and who isn't?
Right.
You know, there's all kinds of things you could do to leverage people's interest in the assets that already exist.
So if anyone on the call has ideas and they want any feedback, we can just type it in the chat window or in the questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said there's 4 components to launching one of these second act businesses?
Yeah, the thing is, and that I really want to emphasize throughout all this, is simplicity. You don't want to make it difficult. You know, we already talked about that it has to be easy to start, under $500, and use other people's assets. But now that you know all that, here's a formula for putting it together. So first of all, you're going to take your skill, a need, or a passion. Sometimes you identify a need that exists, okay? And you have to have one of those. You have to have a skill, or a passion is a hobby or an interest you have, but sometimes there's a need, and we haven't talked about that. So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine runs a business with his wife, and they do consulting for the health and nutrition industry. And of course, anytime you work with a spouse, there's always some friction that comes up. And not friction where you need a therapist, but friction where it'd be nice to have somebody who had some ideas on how to overcome it.
Yeah.
So they were looking for a seminar on that. There weren't any. So he said, well, I'm going to start one then. And so he went out and he started a seminar for couples who work together to deal with the issues that come up. Now, he and his wife are providing some of the expertise because they have real strengths in some areas, but then they went out and found experts to provide the expertise and the knowledge and the training in the areas where they're weak. He started telling friends of his, they've met other couples in business by going to other traditional industry seminars, you know, on marketing and sales or product development. And there's always legal issues in the, some of the companies they work with formulate vitamins. So they've gone to conferences on legal issues, and they met other couples. So all they did was send out an email to these couples they knew and said, look, we're starting this seminar. It's going to be small, 12 people only, $10,000 for the weekend. Let me know if you're interested. They sold it out in under a week, and they've got a waiting list, $120,000. they sold out in a week.
Wow.
And now they take that and they'll get the room, and you find a meeting planner. And you and I have both done live events. You can do a live event for 12 people. You can do a live event for about $1,000 with a great meeting planner, and that includes your room rental. Let's say it's twice that. Let's say it's $2,000 these days. Well, 120 grand gives you a lot of room to pay that $2,000 and run your event. And then what are you going to do? Well, you're going to pay a video crew another $750 to come in and film it.
Yeah.
Well, now your expenses are up to $3,000, but you filmed it, and now you can sell the videos of that event for $2,500 a pop, and you don't have to do your live event anymore. And so it just grows and grows and grows. So that's how you take a need. So the first component was a need. The second component is your unique difference, which we talked about. Yeah. You have a different way of dealing with LinkedIn than, say, Josh Turner does. I really love both of your approaches, and I get stuff from both from you. Yeah. I get great ideas from 10 different photographers who I follow. Right. So all you have to have, your unique difference is just you. It's the you that you put into something. Then the third thing is you have to have the right audience. Mm-hmm. And it's really important. So if you're a yoga instructor, it's great to be a yoga instructor, but there are 8 million yoga instructors, maybe 9 million since we've talked in the last 20 minutes. So you have to have the right audience. Like I said earlier, if you have a program of yoga for cyclists, it's different. Or yoga for seniors, or yoga for kids, or yoga for, believe it or not, living in Southern California, there's a studio here that on weekends does a class on yoga for pets. And people come and they do yoga with themselves and their pets. I thought every dog knew how to do downward dog, but apparently not. God, that was horrible.
They need a good coach.
But, once you start specializing it, then you can't know who your real audience is until you focus to a niche. And then the final thing you need is a way to reach your audience. And the best way to reach your audience when you're first starting, there's two best ways. One is the people you already know, and then the people that they know. This guy filled a $120,000 seminar. The Irish band filled their tour. The woman with the day spa sold out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of rooms just through her friends and her friends telling friends. Now they do advertise because she wants to build the thing, and she's going to franchise it too, which is, that's way beyond the scope of today's talk, but it's not that difficult. But you have to know who the right audience is and then get the word out to them. And that's the 4 components that are necessary to launch a business. And it's really not that difficult when you understand that that's all you really need.
I think when you say start a business, people just kind of freak out. They go, oh my God, it's so complicated. But like I said, if you like to golf and you golf with people and you want to go on golf tours, talk to your golf friends and say, hey, do this.
Yeah, or let's say you want to take a lesson from the best expert, the best teaching pro, and the guy's really expensive. Well, you talk to him and ask him if he'll do a special group lesson, and you arrange with a number of people to come take the group lesson, and that pays for you to go. You may even make a little profit. There's so many different ways to do it. But the thing is that you want it to be simple, and I think hopefully people have understood throughout our talk today that simplicity drives the entire process I'm talking about. You don't want to spend a lot of money. You don't even need to invest a lot of time to just test it and know. Anyone can notify their friends and say, hey, I'm offering consulting now on whatever your topic is. If you're interested or you know anyone who's interested, let me know. You've
Yeah.
just started a consulting business. If it works, you're making some money. If it doesn't work, you either fine tune it and try it again, or you stop, but you didn't lose a thing. It's really simple if you do it just following the steps we talked about today.
So I guess the biggest mistakes people would make is overcomplicate it, spend money.
Yes, and the other thing is over planning. People, anytime you haven't done something, you always want to make sure you're doing everything right.
Yeah.
But you only need a minimum of planning. Mike Tyson has a great quote, and I'm going to kind of mess it up, but it's something like, every plan falls apart the minute you get punched in the face. And what he's talking about is, you come into a fight and you've got this plan, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but it doesn't take into account what the other boxer is going to do, and you get smacked, and all of a sudden your plan is out the window. And it doesn't matter how well you plan. Your plan is just an idea. You want to have a plan, but your plan is going to change as soon as you put it out in the real world. So don't over plan. I use a process I call ready, test, evaluate, which means ready means come up with a really simple plan, launch it, and test.
Yep.
I'm going to offer consulting on LinkedIn. Hey, do you know anybody who's interested? If nobody is, then you say, okay, I'm going to offer a consulting on LinkedIn for financial planners, right? So maybe that's your fine tuning. Maybe that takes off. If it doesn't, then you have to look at something else. Okay, well, maybe I'll create a training program then on LinkedIn. But the thing is, you come up with your idea and you test it. Ready is your simple plan. Test, you put it out there, evaluate. Did it work? Didn't it work? If it didn't, how do I fine tune it? And if that fine tuning doesn't work, do I fine tune again, or do I move on to something else? But over planning is the biggest mistake that people make, and overspending. You don't need to go out and get an office. You don't need a fancy, expensive website. Really, for $100, there are all kinds of resources where you can build a WordPress website. There, just look at inexpensive website builders on Google. There's 3 or 4 really good ones, and I forget their names. There's a lot of them, and they're really good. So you don't need expensive resources. You don't need to put a lot of money into it. You don't need to write a big business plan, because you're not going out to invest to find $2 million in investment capital.
Right.
You're going to launch a very simple second act business.
Sounds great. So I know you're starting this just kind of weekly updates for the second act. So how do people learn more about this?
Yeah. So I'll definitely, so the easiest way is to just go sign up for my free ebook, which is called Second Act Profits, 8 Steps to Leveraging the New Economy for Wealth and Happiness in Your Second Act. And then that will put you on my list, and I send out regular blog posts. I do some interviews, different updates that help people just on all the topics we talked about today. So they can get the free ebook by going to my website, which is profitalchemy.com. And if you go to profitalchemy.com/TED, which is a very, very, complex secret code I worked out. So profitalchemy.com/TED, you can sign up, get the free ebook, and then that'll give you updates. And then if we have a little time and people have some questions or want input, just, why don't you put it in the chat or Q&A, and we'll do our best to help you out.
And this is all, there's no charge for any of this. Just get on the list. You're testing this right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to document it. I've created, or I'm in the process of creating a website called Second Act Profits. And I'm going to document how I took it from an idea to a test, to a refinement of that test, to profit in 2.5 weeks.
I have an example. A friend of mine last year wanted to learn YouTube. So
Yeah,
he just documented his whole journey of learning YouTube.
exactly.
Now
Yeah,
he's written a book and he's gotten people hire him, and he just said, I want to just learn YouTube. And he documented it, did videos. He got over 10,000 subscribers in like 6 months.
yeah. You know, it's interesting to me because if you go out and look at, there's two big nutritional fads right now. One is paleo, the other is vegan. The vast majority of people selling products, training, consulting in both those areas aren't licensed nutritionists or MDs. They're people who've just studied it. They have a passion for it,
Right.
and they're sharing their own approach to it.
Yep.
Just like the guy with YouTube. So it's, you know, it doesn't take a degree in something. It just takes a strong interest and whatever expertise you already have.
Yeah, the keto diet is another big one right now. No guy that started a Facebook group. He has 100,000 members in 2 months.
Yeah, and the keto diet is just it's a ultra. I'm trying to it's an ultra orthodox version of paleo.
Yeah.
It's just cutting out all carbs and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's getting really big.
So yeah, you don't have to you just put a group together, just whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're learning, document the journey of you learning. That's what Brian G. Johnson did. He didn't do it to make money. He did it because he wanted to learn it. So he figured, oh, why don't I just document my path? So
yeah, absolutely. All right. So
so here's one. Oh, no questions. Tom had a question. He said, reach out to him.
So, all right. Well, we're here for a few more minutes. If people have any comments, any questions, you'd like it. Oh, looks like a question just came in, Ted.
There we go. From Rebecca. Where's the profit coming from? Ad sales on sites?
It depends. I mean, there's different sources depending on what you do. If you're a consultant, your profit's coming from your fees. If you're coordinating tours for music groups, sports teams, to wineries or whatever, it's coming from commissions. If you're creating a training program teaching people how to do YouTube, it's coming from direct sales, and it can also come from sponsorships and ads if you want to offer them. If you're doing a conference for couples who want to get married, for married couples who want to get better at working together, well, obviously there's the $10,000 fee, but there's also sponsorship money. A lot of companies, if you set that up on a regular basis, are going to want to sponsor it. So there's a lot of different ways to make money, and some of them apply to all the models, and some are just, I mean, you don't find sponsors for consulting, for example, but for events, sometimes for training programs, and even for information products, you can find sponsors.
Yeah, what I do in my business, I don't do websites anymore. I don't do SEO stuff. So I have people I refer to. And we have a 20% referral back and forth. So if somebody sends me business, it's just a simple formula.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's many, many ways. And thank you for that question.
Anybody else have any questions? I think I just keep thinking, keep it simple. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, simplicity drives the entire thing. And, you know, you want to avoid any book on how to start a business or the portable MBA or any of that stuff, because you don't need it. The new economy has created a big problem of killing jobs, but it's created the true opportunity for anybody to create a simple business too.
Yeah. Oh, with my friend that had the winery, it's like, you're not charging these people for
Yeah,
this
yeah.
experience?
Yeah, remind me, I thought of one after that. We, Southern California is a big grower of strawberries, and we get 2 strawberry crops a year. We get a February crop and an October crop. They charge people, you can come pick your own strawberries, and they're really smart. They've gone out to churches, to schools, to civic organizations. Bring your group for the day.
Yeah.
And we'll do a little class on how strawberries grow. So you'll learn something, you'll learn about gardening, you'll learn about watering and this and that. They do a little class, and then you pay and you go pick the strawberries, and you pay for the strawberries you've picked.
Right.
Just amazing. And they're really smart because they have days that are just open to the public, but they have during the week when the public's not coming, they take advantage of that downtime, and they do tours for like schools, churches, civic organizations, synagogues. I can't think of others, but I mean, there's just so many of them, and they charge them. And at the end of the tour, you get to pick your strawberries and pay for them.
Yeah. Yeah, we know a guy, he riding bikes in Napa Valley between wineries was a big thing. So now he does these tours all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simple ideas.
Yeah.
So Randy says, awesome, very helpful, thank you. And here we go. Here's Rebecca has another one. By the way, Skip says hi with his new second act business. Says, I can connect with you. I'll sign into your site. Looking forward. Thank you.
Well, great. You're welcome. Thanks for being on. It's been really fun to share this information with people.
Yeah, I've got a lot of ideas just from talking to you.
All right. Well, I want my 20%. I mean, if you're getting it.
You got it.
Okay, so maybe that answers that question. How do you
my wife on the Irish music tour too? She'd love to go on that.
Well, it doesn't hurt that we're going. It's Ireland and Scotland, and we're going to some of the best distilleries too. Not that I care in the least about Irish whiskey or single malt Scotch, but we're going.
There we go. Great. Well, Bob, thanks. This has been fun. I love talking to you and chatting like this.
My pleasure. It looks like there may be another question real quick.
Greatly needed info. Thanks, Carly.
Oh, it was just somebody thank us. Well,
yep.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it, the kind words. And Ted, thanks so much for doing this.
Yep, profitalchemy.com/Ted, the secret code.
That's it. Okay.
Nothing's for sale, but
nope.
No, it's a great ebook. I downloaded it. It's good stuff.
Great.
Well, thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
For more free training, visit socialsellingminute.com.